Welcome, brothers. Today we're going to talk about intimacy. Have you noticed that you struggle with intimacy due to your out of control sexual behavior? If you have a hard time developing intimate relationship, you're far from alone. Intimacy is something that most men in the Porn Reboot program struggle with. And understanding where your struggle originates from is the first step to overcoming this battle. So these are just some of the reasons that I'm going to share with you why intimacy might actually be a problem for you when it comes to your relationships as a recovering porn addict. First of all, you had no positive examples of what a healthy relationship actually looks like. The next one is you probably experienced betrayal or inconsistent behavior from people who you looked up to while you were younger. The next one is you believe that lying is the best way to avoid negative consequences. You experience some form of abandonment, and you may have survived some form of abuse, emotional, sexual, physical, or otherwise. So in this video, we're going to talk about how these impact your ability to be intimate with your partner. I'm JK Amazy, head coach at Porn Reboot and founder of Elevated Recovery. We help ambitious business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders end their out-of-control behavior with porn, sex, and masturbation discreetly within 90 days. Over the years, I've noticed that men feel a sense of urgency to learn how to be intimate with their partners as they progress through their reboots. The years of porn addiction eroded your partner or your wife's trust and made it increasingly difficult for her to open up. And developing intimacy is an important part of rebuilding that trust. But the big question is, how do you do it? Just like your behavior destroyed your partner's trust, it also affected your ability to be intimate. And before you learn to rebuild intimacy with your partner, you must learn why you struggle with intimacy in the first place. What is it that makes intimacy so difficult for men who are working through an out-of-control behavior? So let's talk about the few things I listed out earlier. The first one being that you had no positive examples of what a healthy relationship looks like. Now, even though I know my mom and dad loved each other, they never really demonstrated what a healthy relationship entailed. So I often watch my parents fight each other. I would see my dad hit my mom sometimes, she would hit him, she would throw a glass of alcohol at him, she would scream. And neither of them provided an example of what a healthy, loving relationship should look like. And I know that the same applies to lots of men in the Porn Reboot program. Their parents didn't serve as a good model of a healthy relationship. This might be the case for you as well. In fact, if you didn't have a positive example of what a partnership should look like, you won't inherently know how to build intimacy. You'll actually be missing that. The second thing is that if you experience some form of betrayal or inconsistent behavior from people who you looked up to while you were younger, when role models are absent or inconsistent during your developmental years, it makes it difficult to learn how to actually build intimacy. So you adopt negative views of people who are supposed to be taking care of you. Instead, you learn that depending on people often leads to hurt and disappointment. So you believe that people will never follow through on the things that they say they're going to do. And what happens is that these betrayals and inconsistencies, they don't create a strong foundation for building intimacy. See, trust is a necessary, or rather it's a necessity for intimacy, If you can't trust the people who are supposed to care for you, how can you possibly trust someone else? And if you can't trust them, how can you even build intimacy with them, right? Next is that if you're a brother who believes that lying is the best way to avoid negative consequences, that's one of the things that's contributing to your lack of intimacy. See, there were times during my childhood when my parents would punish me in a way that I felt was unjust. And sometimes they would hit me harder than they should have. Other times I felt they were unnecessarily cruel to me. I didn't understand way back then, but when I look back now, it was likely because they were stressed out with their careers and they were exhausted. And the last thing they wanted to do was deal with a kid who had made a mistake. And I soon learned, unfortunately, to lie as a way to avoid all these unfair treatments, as I considered them to be. It kept me somewhat safer while I was younger, but it didn't stay in my childhood. So that practice stuck with me all the way into my early adulthood. So it was easier for me to be dishonest and avoid discomfort than it was for me to tell the truth and deal with whatever the outcome was. So I'll be honest with you, while lying may help you avoid those consequences, it's really not a useful practice to keep up as an adult. Eventually, you need to learn how to tell the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And this is especially important if you want to have any hope of actually building intimacy with your partner. The other reason why brothers experience a lack of intimacy, why you struggle with intimacy in your relationships, is due to possible abandonment. Abandonment is a painful feeling you experience as a child. Maybe your parents got divorced and one of them left without looking back. When you were let down by those who were supposed to actually care for you, it often leads to this narrative that you have in your head that everyone you care about is going to eventually leave. And if you still carry this belief as an adult, it will make it impossible to build intimacy. So you'll always be, 1 foot in, 1 foot out because you believe your partner will eventually leave you. So you must learn how to work through these old feelings of abandonment so that you can learn how to build an intimate relationship. The fifth reason why you struggle with intimacy in your relationship as a man, ending your out of control sexual behavior, is often due to the survival from some form of abuse. Now, abuse occurs in all forms, from mental and physical to even spiritual and sexual abuse. And being a victim of abuse is never your fault. I want to let you know that, no matter what you were told or how it may feel. Abuse destroys your ability to develop intimacy. It causes deep lasting damage to the psyche, and it really does take time to overcome. Experiencing abuse at the hands of someone who says that they love you teaches you to associate abuse with intimacy. And this is particularly true if it happened while you were a young child. So learning to identify and remove yourself from people who exhibit abusive behaviors is challenging but necessary if you want to overcome your struggles with intimacy. So to round things up, brother, once you understand why you struggle with intimacy, learning how to build intimate connections is going to be the next step. But I'm going to save that for a video for another day. It does deserve its own video. Building intimate connections with your partner is very important. But I shared this because understanding intimacy is also important for building fulfilling relationships in general. And unless you can learn how to overcome the stumbling blocks that I just talked about, as well as others that you're going to experience, you'll continue to have a difficult time building intimate relationships with others. And it's just something that I've seen so many times in men they've successfully controlled their behavior using the porn reboot system. Then they are in a season of their life where they want to improve their relationship with their partner, or if they're single, they want to start dating, and then there's this new problem they're dealing with, which is intimacy. So I want to start diving into that a little bit, but I'm very thankful for those of you who have watched this video so far. I'd like to hear your thoughts about this issue with intimacy in the comment section below. And gentlemen, whenever you're ready, there are a few ways that we can help you, but before I talk about that, please do take a moment to like this video if you did like it, to subscribe to the channel. We release videos 4 times a week, every week, and also to drop a comment because it helps us with the algorithm, helps more people to find us, helps you to find us more as well. One of the ways that we can help you is by you joining our free Facebook group. It's a place where you can actually get an accountability partner, and you can be around a few thousand men who are actually using this particular system that I talk about, the porn reboot system, and who are making great progress in their reboots. The second way is to download a free copy of my book. It's called 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men, and it's simply the roadmap to ending your behavior with pornography for good. So it talks about the main things that brothers who had rewired their brain did to end their behavior. And if you're a man who is just at a stage where you're just tired of spending the years relapsing and slipping and telling yourself you're going to do it right this time and using willpower and counting days, then you might want to consider speaking to one of our Reboot strategists to find out if you're a good fit for our program. I'll be very honest with you, our programs are not cheap. We do put a lot of energy into working with men. It's a one-stop shop. So if you're dealing with limiting beliefs, if you have some traumatic issues, if you're struggling with porn addiction, if you have issues with dating, different aspects of your life, we cover everything in this program. So we do have a screening process to make sure that you're a good fit, and we can only work with a certain number of men. But there's a link to get on a call with one of our strategists below this video. I'm JK, your brother in the struggle. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I'll speak to you later on in the week.